What's up, everyone? Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm so excited. This is another special segment. And I know, when we started season 3, I said that we would be doing a lot more special segments to talk about a lot of different topics that small business owners, we really need to have these conversations about, but also we need to have these things in place if we want to do business with the government, but even if we just want to grow our businesses in general. You need people. So today we have a specialist coming in to talk about how to take care of your people and how to properly manage people as well. So as you can imagine, we will be having a conversation around understanding employee benefits, payroll, and everything that you need. Well, not everything. Let's just put it this way. This is going to be an introduction. I don't want y'all to think this is it. Like, there's definitely going to be a lot more to it, but a conversation around what needs to be done around employee benefits with your small business. So we brought on Stephanie Fortune. Stephanie, would you mind giving us an introduction and telling the people a little bit about yourself and some of the work that you do?
Absolutely. Well, firstly, thank you, Shakia, for having me on. I believe knowledge is power. So this is a platform that allows, or applied knowledge is power. So this is a platform that allows people to not only get insights as it pertains to business, but the information that they need to actually apply it, create generational wealth, and protect that wealth. So thank you again for the opportunity to come and speak to the community. It's truly a pleasure. So like you mentioned, Stephanie Fortune, I'm the founder of Fortune Business Consulting. We are an independent payroll and PEO consultancy based here in South Florida. If you're in South Florida, please brace yourself for this hurricane that we have coming. But we are headquartered in South Florida, and our company focuses on supporting small and mid-sized businesses really within 4 core areas. Number 1 is human resource services. So as you talked about, your people, right? Taking care of your people, making sure they're empowered, making sure they're inspired, and they're motivated to do the things to help, your company grow, expand, and for them to be fulfilled as well. Second area is risk management and workers' compensation. So again, that's mitigating risk, making sure that you're insulating your company from risk as much as possible. But in the event that there is a claim or something happens, you want to make sure you have the protective measures in place, again, on the front end to minimize that exposure as much as possible. The third area is payroll. So again, paying your people, processing payroll, time and attendance, things of that nature, and then benefits that we're going to be talking about. So everything from health insurance, dental, vision, to even ancillary benefits like life insurance and things of that nature. And pet insurance. Pet insurance is a big deal now. So pet insurance is something else that we've been talking to companies about. So those are the 4 core areas within the umbrella that Fortune Business Consulting helps with. And we also do general business consulting. So really from inception to succession planning, whether you're starting a business or you're looking to franchise and expand to multiple states, we assist with those services as well.
Nice. And I think that is going to be a key, component. I know you have 4 different pillars, which is great. But we wanted to talk a little bit about where do you start with all of this stuff, like as a small business owner. So can you tell us basically what's the first thing I need to do? Like as soon as I get ready to start hiring employees, like I know I had to think about all of this stuff, but what do I need to do?
Okay. So honestly, that's a good question, but we want to know where you're at. Right. So in order to really say, all right, this is a natural next step, you want to identify where you are. So let's say you're a company that doesn't have any employees and you're looking to maybe bring on folks. You might be transitioning from having either 0 people and you're the one-man band, you're wearing all the hats, or you have 1099s, independent contractors that you're now converting to W-2 employees, right? So the conversation might be different depending on where you are. But I would say the majority of the clients that I see that are smaller companies are usually starting from having some people that are contractors that they're moving to W-2s, or again, they're transitioning to that W-2 space. So if you're pretty much starting from that point, you want to make sure you have proper payroll. Either it's a software, a company that you're working with, or something to make sure that you're adequately tracking your person's time, their attendance, and especially, again, depending on the industries that you're in, these things are things that are necessary to be documented accordingly. And again, as you're transitioning, making sure that all of their paperwork is in order. So from an HR perspective, whether it's your 1099 forms, whether it's your W-2 and W-4 forms that you have your employees fill out, you want to make sure you have those proper enrollment documents on hand. So that way, at the end of the year, whether you're remitting taxes on your employees' behalf or they're doing it on their own, you have the necessary documents to make sure you get them back. If you're a company that you're pretty much, again, doing it on your own and you're starting from scratch, you want to make sure that you have accounting software. So you need to know your numbers. That's something that I see more than I'm comfortable even admitting. To be honest with you, a lot of business owners don't know their numbers. And if you don't know your numbers, you don't know your business. So an accounting software is something that, I would say is critical to your business operation. And again, that gives you a better understanding of some of these line items and to know how much money you can afford to put towards staff and things of that nature.
Got it. So let's talk a little bit, you definitely pointed out that we need tools to, be able to do this work. What are some tools that small business owners can use to really manage and track all of these documents and enrollment paperwork and stuff?
Okay. So from a perspective of just different resources and different tools, you want to make sure that you have access to some type of a database, right? Whether it's, again, a payroll company or an HR company that you're working with and they help you collect the paperwork, you want to make sure that you have that paperwork collected. So let's say you're working with 1099s. There's not as much paperwork that's required on the employer side, because a 1099 is someone that is essentially their own employer, right? So the onus falls upon themselves as opposed to you as a W-2 or as an employer that has W-2 employees. So those 1099 documents, those I-9 documents, the necessary employee handbook, that more so applies to W-2 persons. But for a 1099 person, you still want to make sure you have those necessary documents in place, especially if you're a company that requires insurance and they're going to ask you for insurance. You want to make sure that those 1099s have their certificates of insurance on file, or if they have exemptions and they're going to ask for qualified exemptions, you want to make sure you have those exemptions on file. For your W-2 employees, you want to make sure you have your W-4 forms. You want to make sure you have your employment verification forms. You want to make sure that you have those identification, the 2 forms of identification, whether it be a driver's license, whether it be birth certificate, things of that nature. So again, you're going to use an HR software, a payroll software, or a company that's going to be handling these documentations for you that you'll submit to that company. And again, you want to always make sure you keep those documents in a very secure place and maintain those documents all throughout the year, because again, you're going to need that for remitting taxes as well as communication throughout. A lot of times, especially right now, unfortunately, it's a very volatile market for businesses. So there's a lot of turnover that we're seeing. So let's say someone leaves your company or you're having a lot of turnover throughout the year. You want to make sure that you're able to get those documents out, or you have the contact information for your team in order to get the documentation and information out to your team. So there's companies like Paychex, ADP, or even QuickBooks and Sure Payroll that, companies can see as a resource when they're looking at these types of services. And again, as employers, the onus does fall on us. And I don't want people to say they didn't know, and so they didn't do it. The onus and responsibility still falls upon you when you have W-2 employees, and it's still your responsibility.
So that's a good point. I was trying to drop some of these in the chat as we were going along. So I did take what you said about the IRS W-2 form, and I went and got the link for that one. The other one is for 1099 contractors. So I'm going to grab the document for that to drop it in there as well. But would you, before we go too far into that, would you mind telling us some do's and don'ts of 1099 contractors, just so everyone knows, what you can and can't require of someone in.
Okay, and then we can even talk about the differences, because I think that's something that has a lot of gray area, and a lot of people don't always know the differences between the 1099 and a true 1099 and a true W-2 person. So the IRS looks at some different requirements when they're looking at that, right? It's usually 7 requirements that they're looking at. So things that they might want to look at is, let's say, the level of discretion that person has. So are you someone that can decide when you start work, how you complete your work? Or is your boss or is your manager telling you, you need to be here from 9 to 5? These are the different resources that you need to do. This is how you do the job function, right? Are you wearing company t-shirts? So does your company say Fortune Business Consulting on your t-shirts or the things that you wear? Or is it your own independent company? Or are you just not wearing branded material at all? Let's say you're going on a job site. Who's providing you those resources to go on that job site? Let's say you have a truck. You have a ladder, you have different tools, you have equipment. Who's providing those tools and equipment for you? Is it you as an independent contractor, or are you working for someone and they're providing you those different tools and resources? So when you begin to look at the autonomy, the level of autonomy that the person has, you look at the different resources that are given to that person, and the resources, equipment, and tools, and necessary resources to get the job done, right? When you look at some of these different elements, that'll determine who really is in charge, for lack of a better word, right? So when the IRS is looking at a person and they're trying to identify whether this person is a true 1099 versus a W-2, these are some of the distinctions that they're looking at, right? How much control over your day, how much control over the things that you do, the output, even compensation. Again, how is money actually being transferred, right? Are you sending an invoice and someone is paying that invoice? Is someone paying you salaried? Is someone paying you on an hourly basis? How many hours are they working for you compared to another company? Again, these are all different metrics that the IRS is going to take into consideration when determining if someone is a true 1099 or if they're in fact a W-2 person. So I know there's a lot of companies that, they might start as a 1099 or say, hey, we have a few hours here and there, and then it becomes more consistent. Then it's more throughout the week. And then it's, hey, wear this company t-shirt, hey, be here at this time and this time, but they still have them categorized as a 1099. When you begin to look at it, that person is more looking like a W-2 versus a 1099. And that's one thing that I would certainly advise business owners to be cognizant of, because again, when the IRS gets involved, or even if an employee decides that, hey, I'm due some money here or some protections here, or there's a claim and they're saying, you know what, I really should have been labeled as a W-2 person and not a 1099 person, this claim now goes up, right? So they're going to subrogate and they're going to go up to that employer. So again, they kind of bear the onus of that claim wherever it falls.
Got it. So let's hop into a little bit of the employee benefits side.
Sure.
Can we talk about some of the different types of employee benefits and then also how to set those up? I know for like super small businesses, sometimes this can be a huge expense. Can you tell us some ways to kind of navigate getting started on those in that front as well?
Absolutely. So right now, employers are looking for different ways to offer value and incentivize employees to come and work for their company. So benefits has always been a conversation and a conversation piece for a lot of employees, but especially during the COVID times, we saw that people wanted to work from home, they wanted comfort. So looking at a benefits package as a whole was kind of evolved during COVID times, right now that we're virtual. So I'll speak from that perspective as a whole, as well as now, because when people think benefits, sometimes they only think about health insurance, dental, vision, right? But it's much more expansive than that. And that's one thing that I think smaller businesses, especially that may not necessarily have all the financial resources, can do to leverage that. So when you talk about benefits, we'll talk about your traditional health insurance. So Cigna, Aetna, Florida Blue are some of the companies that offer benefits, right? So they might have individual plans, they might have small group plans or group plans. Now, for a lot of employers, depending on the size of your organization, and when I say size, we're talking about the number of employees and even folks that are qualified to be on the plan, that will determine if you have access to group benefits or not, right? So a lot of the companies that we see, especially being independent PEO consultants, they may have 2, 3, 5, 10 employees. And sometimes they might qualify for group benefits. Sometimes they might do it individual. Other times is when you're looking at, let's say, a company with 5 employees, but you might have a husband, a wife, and 1 child, and then 2 other employees that are not relatives, right? So now from the insurance company perspective or the health insurance company perspective, when they're looking at that, you have a family there. So you have a husband, a wife, and a child, and 2 other employees. Now, let's say one of the other employees has insurance coverage by their spouse. Now you really only have 3 people, and now maybe 2, right? Looking at from a group perspective that might be qualified for health insurance. So now you might want to look into something like a PEO or professional employer organization to get access to those big benefits, access to the supply, as well as different plan designs. Again, when you're looking at health insurance, like you mentioned, the price and the premiums are going up. I would say on average for a individual plan, so that's non-family, not in individual and spouse, you're looking at 600, 700, 800. Again, we're seeing some rough numbers, if I'm being completely honest with you, but that's unfortunately what the market is demanding right now. Dental is something that's a little bit more cost effective. It's not always immediately attached to the health insurance, the medical, but that is something that can be an add-on, right? So $27, $15, $30, $45 per employee. That's something that you can see in terms of the price tag for something like dental. Vision, you can also see for about that same premium or a little bit around, a little bit more than that for vision insurance. Now, again, depending on the size of your group, that'll determine if you have access to group. Now that gives you more economies of scale, you get more of a discount. And in a PEO environment, again, you have access to their master plan. So when you're on a company's master, they might have better plan designs, they might have better offerings. So they have different plans that are actually offered to that employer. Now that employer has the ability to select whichever plan that they desire, but whatever they do, they have to pay 50% of the individual plan premium for all of the employees that's qualified for access to benefits. So that's another thing that employers need to take into consideration when they're choosing to offer benefits. It's not going to be a situation where, again, using that same company profile, I only want to offer it to my family and not everybody else. And you have to offer 50% of that individual plan. So whatever that is, that's the number that you have to use across the board for all of your employees that you want to offer benefits to. Again, something that can be leveraged if you don't have necessarily the financial resources is flexibility with work schedule. So giving people the ability to work from home on Fridays or to not be open on Fridays at all. Giving people the ability to, again, have a hybrid working model where, maybe on Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays they're working from home, and on Tuesdays and Thursdays they're working at the office. So these are things that from a benefits package perspective, it's adding some flexibility for the employer side. It may not be it's cost prohibitive, but it may benefit the employee because, again, they want flexibility when it comes to their schedule. You might have folks that are fully virtual, right? So they want the ability to be fully virtual. They never want to come into the office and see anyone's face. But again, it gives them the opportunity to do that. More vacation time, more sick time, leniency when it comes to that. Parental leave. So when you're looking at folks that are, looking to have a family or, they're going into that stage of their life, you want to make sure that you have maternal leave and paternal leave, right? So these are things that are very much so parts of the conversation that folks are having when they're looking at the benefits package. The actual compensation, so bonuses, raises, promotions, things of that nature. Then you also look at things such as, and right now, especially with so much going on in the world, and I'll speak from my experience right now, there's a lot happening personally that's affecting people's mental and emotional health. So when we think about things like that, there are companies and there are offerings that can be provided, right? So being able to provide some emotional and emotional and mental support. So even therapy, things like therapy. These are things that are now offered by employers or different programs that they have access to with different companies that they partner with to provide that for their employees. And it's virtual. A lot of it is virtual. So you don't have to leave your house. You don't have to go to the therapist's office. You don't have to go and talk to anybody on their couch. You can talk to them from your own couch. So these are things that, are very advantageous for employers to be able to offer to their employees.
Nice. And I like how they kind of started to really focus on the full aspect of a person as opposed to, go to the doctor, his dental, his health. And I think that that's one component of it that really, allows you to be flexible as a small business, like you said earlier, to create some benefits for, your employees to basically be able to retain them longer, but also just make sure you're taking care of your people.
Absolutely.
And the other part of it is, we have these people and we want to be able to make sure we have these benefits packages in place. What happens, and this is the longevity of an employee. This is the human resource side of it now. What am I doing from an HR perspective as a small business? Like, how do I set up an HR department or start tracking, what is HR? Let's just say it's a small business. What is HR?
So I'm going to tell you what HR should be for a small business, because an HR for a lot of small businesses is non-existent and that needs to change. But the reality of it is you have humans within your organization. They're the ones that are the first line of defense for your clients. They're the first line of defense for your vendors, for your different partner companies, right? So human resources, right, is essentially something where you want to manage, support, and provide the level of attention that's necessary for the humans that work for your organization, right? So now people call it the people department, because again, we want to see them as not just a tool, but truly assets to our organization. So being a small business, again, a lot of times resources are limited. And that's why HR gets neglected a lot of times, because that's something that's seen more as a soft cost, or it's something that's seen as something that's irrelevant. It doesn't directly impact the bottom line, right? You don't see it as a line item on your books. But the reality of it is, again, your people matter to your organization. So documentation, number one, I would say is critical, right? Again, from the inception, proper interviewing questions. So navigating I'll even go before that. So when you're putting out job descriptions, wanting to know specifically the seats that you have available within your organization and who's going to fit that profile to be able to sit in that seat, right? Making sure that those are consistent, making sure that your interviewing process is consistent, because especially now when you have these different protected classes, you want to make sure that even your interviewing process covers all of those bases, and there's no favoritism, because again, that opens a lot of room for exposure, right? So even during the interviewing process, and when the way that we're reviewing resumes, all that stuff matters. Now, when you have the person, let's say you made an offer to a person, again, documentation is key. So keeping access and keeping files of everything that you need. If you have people working remotely, if you have people working in office, if you have hybrid, again, time and attendance also matters. So depending on the industry that they're in, it may be necessary for them to clock in and clock out. Or if you have geolocation, where they might have to work on a specific job site or a different location within a certain vicinity, you can put in a pinpointed address. You can pinpoint within a certain radius, but once they're in that radius, then they'll be able to actually clock in. They won't be able to clock in otherwise unless they're doing that. You have some software and technology where they can actually take pictures of your computer, let's say every 10 minutes, every 5 minutes, because again, someone might be working remote. You want to make sure that they're actually doing what they need to do. So documentation, technology are your friends when it comes to HR, right? Other things you want to look at when it comes to HR is how you assess your team, how you assess your talent. So again, let's say they have a job description, they have certain requirements. You gave them an offer letter. This is your standard. This is what success looks like. How often are you actually assessing them? Are you doing quarterly reviews? Are you doing annual reviews? Are you doing biannual reviews? Make sure, again, you have that standard, and that's something that's used across the board, right? So having those reviews in place and making sure that whatever metrics you have, again, they apply to that individual person, but you use metrics and you make sure that they apply to all the different individuals within your organization. One area within metrics that I see people have issues with sometimes is saying, okay, well, you have a producer, you have someone in sales. I know they need to meet a specific quota. That makes sense in terms of having a metric. But let's say you have an accountant, or let's say you have an administrative person. What metric do I use then? Sometimes some things you might want to take into consideration is the ratio of tasks that they're given and the completion of those tasks, how long it takes to complete a specific task. So task management and project management are some of the things that you can use to derive certain metrics for that specific person. But you can always come down to some number that you can use as a metric for your talent. So don't be afraid to figure out, how do I know whether or not this person is being productive or efficient in doing their job? And again, as long as you're assessing that at different intervals throughout the year, there's no surprise on either side, right? You're not letting go someone that thought they were doing a good job, but they really weren't, and because they didn't really know what success looked like, or they didn't know what the standard was, and vice versa, right? You're not upset that someone's not making quota or not reaching and succeeding at their job, because they already knew what they were supposed to do. And during those meetings, during those different assessments, you were able to kind of coach them and guide them along the way. So again, having those things in place are critically important. You want to also make sure that especially conflict resolution right now, and different ways of communicating with your team in the event that something happens. There are times when it's necessary to have different persons within the organization present for meetings. So let's say you're doing exit interviews. Let's say you're reprimanding someone for coming late. Let's say whatever it is, you want to make sure maybe you have an HR person in-house, or if you have outsourced HR, you might want to have an outsourced person present for that meeting, and maybe a manager during that conversation with that employee. Claims management as well. So let's say something happens and this person gets injured. HR wants to also make sure that they step in to make sure that that process being managed adequately. So for small businesses, again, a lot of times it might be necessary to just make sure that documentation, process and procedures, technology, all these things are critical to starting out. And even if you don't have a full HR department, even if you don't have a person that's paid $75,000 a year to be your HR, you want to make sure that you're still understanding that people are critical to your business operations, and you want to make sure that you have them there to support your organization as much as possible.
Nice. And I like that. I like how you broke it down to show the medium and the small business side of it. Let's talk about payroll for a second.
Sure.
Um, and running payroll, setting up payroll, and determining fair wages for employees.
Okay, awesome. So with payroll, so we can do fair wages and then payroll. So with depending on what state you're in, right, we might have different minimums. So different minimums to payroll, different minimums to compensation, right, and how much we would have to compensate different employees depending on what they're doing, how many hours they're operating. Again, you have between 1099 and W2. So let's focus on the W2 side. Now, once you meet that minimum threshold of whatever state that you're in, you're paying that person above and beyond that. You want to look at what the industry standard is. They have 1 year of experience, 3 years of experience, 10 years of experience. You're not looking to pay someone that has 10 years of experience the same amount that you're paying someone that you would pay someone that has 1 year of experience, right? So looking at the industry standard, looking at where you want to set yourself apart from your competitors, because the reality of it is that you're paying for talent, right? You're paying a little bit more. And I've had situations where people wanted to pay $1, $2.50 more per hour in the hopes of, getting more business or getting someone that is more qualified, and they're able to do the job a little bit more effectively, but that may not necessarily be the thing that that employee wanted, right? So it's not always going to be the exact dollar amount, but looking at what the industry demands for that particular position, that level of experience, what your local area is demanding in terms of your competitors in that local market. You want to also look at what else your benefits package is offering. So sometimes if I was going to use an example for a publicly traded company, but let's say you're a smaller company, right? Again, are you giving flex time in terms of working remote versus being in office? Are you giving away sick time? Are you giving away holiday time? So these are things that you might want to say, I can offer a lesser salary or a lesser hourly rate, but I'm giving more time throughout the year, more holiday time, more vacation time, things of that nature. Again, in your benefits package, are you actually offering health, dental, vision? Let's say you're doing things of that nature. Again, other companies may offer a little bit more, $15, $17 an hour, $20 an hour, because they're not offering benefits, right? So all of these things you want to take into consideration. It's not going to be this person demands $15 an hour. That's always what should be offered. You want to look at the full benefits package as a whole. You want to look at what that position actually demands. You want to look at experience. Now, we're in a market where, again, it's really weird too, because during COVID, we were in an employee market, and now it's kind of moving back towards an employer market as it pertains to who has more leverage, so to speak, right? So again, it's going to be a situation where a lot of companies are laying off a lot of talent. So employees now need to be aware of these things, and employers need to be aware of the talent that might now be available in the market for them to bring onto their company. So again, just kind of understanding what the industry demands, understanding what their local economy and local industry demands, as well as the level of experience and the full benefits package as a whole. Now, in terms of payroll, there's a lot of options for payroll depending on the company, what they're looking for. So you have companies like QuickBooks, Xero, different softwares that you can use to process payroll. A lot of them are interconnected with a accounting software, an accounting platform that they use. So you can track time, you can track time, so time off and things of that nature, accrual throughout the year. Let's say you're going to give 2 weeks of vacation time, and it actually tracks that accrual all throughout the year. You can track workers' compensation. So if they're doing it on actual hours worked, it'll track it and deduct it throughout the year as well. So there's a lot of cool technology that gives business owners access to those resources within that software. You also have payroll companies that will just process payroll for you. So you let them know how much time an employee has worked, what their hourly rate is, send that to that payroll company, and they'll do the process for you. So again, when you're talking about payroll, it's not just a person is paid $15 an hour and they work 40 hours a week. You're looking at taxes. You're looking at, depending again on your state, the rates may vary, but you're looking at Federal Insurance Contribution Act. You're looking at Federal Unemployment Tax Act. You're looking at State Unemployment Tax Act. You're looking at Medicare. You're looking at Medicaid. So these are all things that are taken out of the employer and employee side when it comes to payroll that are remitted to the IRS throughout the year on a quarterly basis, as well as annualized. So these are the aspects on the other side that a lot of employers don't see. They're like, okay, well, why am I paying for this? Well, it's because you want to make sure you're tracking all these things adequately and you're remitting them at a certain time throughout the year, right? So, knowing your RT6, knowing what an RT6 form is, knowing what these different forms are, and again, those deadlines, because you do not want to pay those fines. Then again, you have PEO companies that will do all those things for you. So not only will they do the accrual, time and attendance, as well as the tax remittance, but they'll also manage and be your HR department. So again, if there is something that goes on within the organization and you need some support on, they'll be there to offer that support. And a lot of them actually have legal. So again, let's say something escalates to a point where it's necessary to bring a law firm in, or there's a suit that's brought on to one employee to another, or an employee to the employer. Again, you have the backing of that particular PEO company. They also manage the workers' compensation and claims management process for businesses as well. So again, let's say, God forbid, there's a claim. They help you manage that process. They help with the defense, again, in the event that there's a suit that's associated with that, and those different services, as well as offering benefits if the company does decide to do something. So businesses do have a lot of options when it comes to it. And again, it's something that's scalable. So you don't have to start with a big business solution. You can say, hey, I just want a software for right now. Or you can say, hey, I'm ready to outsource it and have another company do it for me. Or now I have more people. I want, this big business solution. And again, there's a solution at every stage of the business life cycle. So it's never a thing that, okay, I just never found a solution that worked for me. It's what is the solution that works for me at this stage, and what are some of my strategic goals?
Nice, very nice. Now, so can you tell us a little bit more about your company and the work that you do? Because I know you mentioned PEO earlier, and those are companies that practically do everything for you. You just outsource it. But tell us a little bit about your company.
Sure. So like I said, we're independent payroll and PEO consultants. So in a nutshell, what we're looking to do is support businesses, right? Businesses have different life cycles. They have different strategic goals. They have different things that they're looking to do. So a lot of times there's administrative aspects of the business that they either don't have the expertise, they don't have the time, or they frankly don't want to do, right? So again, that's looking at things like processing payroll, like remitting those taxes, like managing the HR administrative paperwork side of things, right? Looking for different benefits providers. So when it comes to maybe annually looking at medical, looking at dental, looking at vision, looking at life insurance, looking at these different things, companies may not necessarily have the time to audit and review those different areas. So that's where we come in. Again, we have the expertise. We know different payroll companies. We know different providers that offer these solutions and these services. And so we do a thorough audit of our client company's environment. We look at, again, what is your goal? What is your timeline? What's your budget? What are some of the things that you're facing in terms of challenges that your business is experiencing? Where are you looking to be in a year, 3 years, 5 years? Are there areas that where we can reduce expenses, right? So a lot of times people, especially right now in this market, people are looking for ways to reduce their overhead and looking for ways to reduce expenses. How can we find opportunities to reduce that? So we had a company that we were helping, and we saved them it was around $17,000 on the workers' compensation side, and several thousand on the benefit side. So there's opportunities where we can reduce costs and give you a solution that's more economical and more cohesive. So you have one solution that's managing payroll, HR, risk management, as well as benefits, all within one solution. So we help with that process, and we help kind of bring together those solutions for that organization. The other half of the business is, again, consulting. So whether you're a startup or you have an idea, you're an entrepreneur, you're working for a company right now and you're looking to step out on your own, but you have no idea where to start, or you've been a company and you've been operating for 30, 40 years, but you're at the point where you now maybe want to offer benefits. You maybe want to offer something that's more advantageous because you've been losing talent and now you don't know what to do. You're in a new marketplace. You don't know what this whole virtual situation is and how to thrive there. You're trying to figure out different ways to offer value to your clientele as well as to your employees. We come in and devise different solutions. Sometimes it's as simple as, hey, we need a handbook, we need job descriptions, we need to formulate offer letters, we need to create processes and procedures for our company. Where do we start? And a lot of times, it could be something, as simple, and I say simple because a lot of times it's paperwork, but sometimes you have to have the level of expertise, you have to have the time, you have to have the patience, you have to have the wherewithal to do all these different things. And so, again, that's where we really thrive and we provide solutions to these different businesses.
Got it. And that's a huge component of, addition to the work that we do. We are heavy on the government contracting side, but we understand that there's a lot of things that need to be done in order to be within compliance of that. So definitely happy you shared that. And would you mind telling us how businesses can get in contact with you to do business with you, or let it go to your website to learn a little bit more? Please let us know.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you can always reach out to us via phone, email, website. The phone number is 954-355-1582. Our website is fortunebizconsulting.com. We are also on social media and we post content. So if you guys want to follow us, give us a like and a share. On Instagram, we are fortune_BC. And on LinkedIn and Facebook, we are Fortune Business Consulting.
Very nice. Definitely happy to have you on. Thank you so much, Stephanie, for coming in, sharing. I know there's so much more that we need to talk about as it relates to payroll, HR, benefits, workers' comp. There's so much that, we didn't really get a chance to cover. So there definitely will probably be another opportunity to come in and have another conversation about it. But definitely, I appreciate you coming on today as we prepare to get through this hurricane.
Yes, not a problem. It's been a pleasure. And like I said, my mission in life truly is to empower. So if there's any way that I can do that, I always try to find that opportunity to support. So yes, I appreciate the opportunity. It's been a pleasure.
Of course. Well, thank you so much, everyone who's tuning in. If you are just coming in, listen, I'm going to go ahead and give you the opportunity. We're going to end it right here, but give you the opportunity to listen from the beginning because you don't want to miss it. But we have also added a lot of the links that we went over in the chat. So look in the chat section to reach out and figure out how to do business with Fortune Business Consulting. Go to the link, go check out their website, reach out. You can go in and get a quote for different resources or things that you may need for your business. A lot of times this is going to be crucial when you are submitting proposals for different government contracting opportunities. Hint, hint. But in the meantime, thank y'all so much for tuning in. If you have questions, drop them in the comment section. And if you have any other topic you want us to bring someone in on to have a conversation about for a special segment, drop that in the comment section too, and we'll definitely be able to get someone in to have these conversations because again, it's necessary and we got to make sure that we're prepared when we're going after these opportunities. All right. So that's it. I'll see y'all in the next one. Or actually, we got a podcast episode coming out on Thursday. So we'll see you there. All right. All right. Peace.
Peace.
Okay. It is done. How are you feeling?